My name is Susan Kirsch-Kibler, and I'm the founder of Delivering Dreams International Surrogacy. I want to introduce Kate Martin. Kate, who's
Hi, everyone.
Who's in Krakow, Poland. Oksana.
Hello.
Lviv, and Chubangi, who is actually in India. She works with our Southeast Asian clients. All our customer service managers who work directly with our couples, helping them from before they start all the way to bringing their children home. So this is an information session, so I don't want to say much about us, but for those of you that do not know about us, I just want a little bit about introduction. So we're Delivering Dreams is an American company, but we only deal in Ukraine. I spent pretty much all of my life living and working in Ukraine, and we are based in Kiev, Lviv. Currently, we are functioning only out of Lviv and Krakow, Poland, with our team. We're independent, which is a unique thing for an agency. This means we're not owned or tied to any clinic. And this was particularly helpful, is helpful now, and was helpful during the critical period of war that affected Kiev, because we have screened, verified clinics throughout Ukraine that are up to our standards, medically, ethically. Most of them are certified internationally as well. So we were able to move without interrupting the care. Because we're not owned by any clinic, we also advocate only for our clients, for the biological parents. So our job is to be there as if you were there and ask the questions you would ask. If that means getting a second opinion, if that means changing a doctor, something like that, to make sure that your surrogate and your child are getting the very best of care. It means our contracts are under US law, and all payments are paid legally and officially. So there's no money going back and forth on your part. So our formula for success remains the same as before the war, and I'll describe how we did it during the intensity and how we continue to do it, because we cannot plan for the future. And we'll go over some of our alternatives as well. So our keys to success have always been a combination of, well, a must-have of three things: the very, very best embryology, to make sure that your embryos are formed, treated, frozen, thawed, and implanted in the very highest standards. We work with people that have transferred over 20, 50,000 embryos. I'm forgetting the exact number, but really world-class. Work with the very best surrogates. This means we do compensate them more. We do much higher testing, much more testing, and do a lot of unique things like visiting their homes each month to make absolutely sure that their conditions remain safe, healthy, a good living environment to raise a child. We also make sure that they have a support network, and the people around them know and support that their decision to be a surrogate, so that they'll help them both through the emotional ups and downs, as well as helping them be able to cook and clean on their behalf, so that they can rest and take good care of themselves and your child during pregnancy. Third is really surrogate care, making sure that they have the absolute ultimate surrogate care from the embryo transfer all the way through and after birth. And this is done by having the very best doctors. And again, I said a lot of times, if we have any concerns or frustrations, we do a outside consultancy. Because we're not wed to the clinic or doctor, we are responsible to you. Now we had to, this has always been safety of the surrogate and your child has always been a critical factor, but that took a whole new spin and has taken a whole new spin during the war. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about what we did during the war, because I think, or there's still a war, but some of the things we've done and would continue to do depending on the situation, because I think actions speak a lot louder than words. So first and foremost, we didn't abandon any surrogate. We evacuated about 2 weeks before the war. We evacuated all our surrogates to Lviv. We had in an abundance of caution, the word that every government loves to use, we wanted to make sure that our biological parents could sleep at night knowing that their children and their surrogate were safe. So even as early as January, we had acquired apartments in Lviv, and around the 14th of February, we moved all our pregnant surrogates to Lviv, except for one. She was in a very high-risk pregnancy, and the doctor said that she was unable to move without a very high chance of losing the child. So unfortunately, she had to stay in place. We offered and encouraged all our surrogates to take members of their family they wanted to take with them. Unfortunately, a lot of them didn't, because they really didn't feel the necessity and that the war was going to happen. I mean, no one knew, and I think they really didn't believe it was going to happen. And we did that at no additional costs to our intended parents. Our team stayed in Ukraine. I am extremely, extremely proud that we didn't run, that our team stayed in Ukraine to make sure that we had one surrogate, to make sure that everyone had the care they needed throughout the period. Our intended parents never lost contact with their surrogates at any stage in the process. We went to a system of daily updates. I know we have some people here, first by email, and then when I was traveling and in Poland, we switched to WhatsApp. So that the IPs and the surrogates could stay in communication. And for people that don't know us, we recommend this if you want, that you build a relationship with your surrogate. And that's something we help people so they do that in a comfortable way, because there is a balance between the emotional part of that and the professional part of that relationship. Our surrogates never missed an appointment or went without medicine. Because we had facilities that we've approved and used in Lviv for many, many, many years, they were able to seamlessly move to doctors there who had all their history and continue to have the care as if they were in Kiev. So then, I can't remember the exact date, there were bombings to the north and to the south of Kiev, of Lviv, fairly far away, Lutsk and Ivano-Frankivska. But we took that decision at that time that our biological parents, the intended parents, would be much more secure and confident in the safety of their children if we moved them to Poland. So within 48 hours of those bombings, we had all our surrogates in Krakow, except for the woman I mentioned before with a high-risk pregnancy. And unfortunately, there was a woman, a surrogate giving birth. She'd started her, what's the word? She'd started contractions, and we couldn't move her. She had been on bed rest for over a month, and there was no way to move her safely without endangering both her life and the children. So she stayed in Lviv. All our clients' biological materials, embryos, sperm, and eggs were moved out of Kiev. The embryos and the eggs were moved to Slovakia, where they remain, and the sperm is in Lviv. We did all of that for no cost to our couples. We did successfully extract that last surrogate when the doctors gave us the thumbs up that she was able to travel. It was a very delicate extraction because she was in Sumy, and it took us quite some time to make sure that we could do it safely because that was a very dangerous area, but we were able to extract her, and we're very, very proud of that fact. She went to Lviv, and at the parents' request, now she is in Krakow. We were able to maintain full documentation for each couple, for the full exit documentation for their children. Some of these documents had to be extracted from Kiev because most of the clinics shut down immediately and locked their facilities. So we had to get them out of the city, which is a little bit exciting. We also, on a side note, there were a lot of people from other agencies and clinic who were separated from their surrogates, and surrogates that had been separated from their intended parents. And we did help as much as we could in reuniting more than 10 or 12 couples from other agencies. We felt it was the most we could do to help out. It's in a terrible, terrible situation. So that's a little bit about what we did during the war, and I'm proud of my team for making it through that. Oksana was the main point person in Lviv. Kate traveled to Poland with our surrogates because she speaks fluent Polish. So the situation today, we had put all our transfers and surrogate preparation on hold for a month. We did that about 2 or 3 days into the war. So 2 weeks and a half ago, or around then, we've started up our process again. And in 10 days, we're going to have our first embryo transfer. So there's a lot of options I'll go over, and there's a lot of information. So I'm going to take it slow to make sure I get everything. The embryos and eggs that have been sent remain in Slovakia. The sperm is still in Lviv. For our existing clients, we will be moving either, there's some discussion, either one embryo that's ready for as stimulation is ready for your embryo transfer. We'll be moving either just that embryo or all your biological material. It goes back and forth, so we're still trying to work on that. Shipping, international shipping for biological material is available now, pretty much from everywhere in the world. The only restrictions right now are COVID restrictions. And so that is possible, but you're also able to come and give donations anytime you want. What we are doing for our existing clients, the ones that had started and we put on hold, is we're retesting their surrogate mothers from the very beginning. Yes, it's only a month, and probably nothing has happened, but we feel that we just can't take that risk. And for us, it's worth absorbing that additional cost to make sure that you get the very best potential results. Kiev clinics have opened, some last week, some the week before. We still do not recommend that as a location yet. There were some bombs that hit yesterday in Kiev. So we are taking that very slowly, and it does impact one or two of our programs. So let's see here. So let us talk about what's changed and what hasn't changed. For those for most programs, there's absolutely no changes. For guaranteed programs with donor, most clinics insist that they use their donor or they won't do the guaranteed programs. They seem to have a lot less donors than before the war. We're not quite sure why. We're in discussions with them now about accepting our donors. They would run all the same tests. They would do everything. Plus, we actually do additional tests more than they do. But we don't understand why, if they approve the donor, they wouldn't accept her into the guaranteed program. But I want you to know that that is an issue right now. Also, our guaranteed programs with your own biological material are only available in Kiev. And so right now they are on hold until we feel comfortable, and hope that Kiev will be in a position soon where we and you will feel comfortable opening there. And I must say, these decisions are not made by Delivering Dreams alone about where and when. This is a combined effort because it is very important that your concerns are taken into account. You're who we answer to. So if you have concerns about safety and location, that's our job to meet. I do have to put in my clause. I'm sure several of you have heard about guaranteed programs. To get in a guaranteed program in Ukraine, anywhere, they have very, very high standards for sperm. They're much more than normal. And so a lot of times you need to think that, is it worth paying the additional money when, if your sperm is so good and you're getting a donor that is young and potentially has given and has had great results, is it worth paying that extra money for the security of getting a guarantee? This is something, it's a risk versus financial question. So if you have this amazing sperm, you may get pregnant in the very first time. There's more of a chance of that because of the high quality of your sperm. However, some people are very risk averse. And if you want that guarantee, and we all understand that to do surrogacy, this is not your first option. Most of you attending have gone through many, many rounds of IVF, miscarriages, potential adoptions, and it's been very difficult. And of course, you can no longer have children. So that guarantee is very important to some, but it is something you have to weigh, and it's something that we can educate you on, but it really needs to be, it's a personal decision. So that's the difference with those two programs. With the other programs, like I said, we're redoing tests on all our surrogates. Those are being done at no additional cost. The embryo transfers we do in Lviv, we're transferring the embryos and or eggs to Lviv at no additional cost. The transfer Costs are more expensive in Lviv in general for medical monthly stipends, but we're not passing that on. The storage of biomaterial will still be included, and transportation. So let's see. One of the questions we've gotten a lot is about donors. If we have enough donors, and how are they chosen? Will I find the right donor? And under the stressful situation that they've had and could be having now, how that might affect your potential donor. So I'm going to ask Kate, one of our customer service representatives who has amazing experience with donors.
Hello again, everyone. So yeah, as Susan said, this is one of the main questions for those that will be using a donor. Are there enough donors in Ukraine right now? Definitely a lot of people left Ukraine, but our answer is absolutely yes, we can find a donor for you. We've done it before. We have huge experience in that, and I have to add that we've done it successfully, even after the war started. We work with few types of donors. We work with anonymous donors that neither us nor you would know their names or would not have any contact with them. We also work with databases that have frozen eggs already. Again, there would be no additional information. And we also work with known or elite donors. These are the donors that don't work with databases directly, they work with us. What it means? It means that you would be able to ask questions or maybe sometimes even talk to them if they are willing, of course. So it gives you much more opportunities to get to know the person that will be giving her oocytes to you. We are able to ship eggs from anywhere in the world, except that we're working with donors in Ukraine. We're also working with databases all over the world, and we can just find the best donor with your specifications. How it usually happens, you would give us the specifications and we would give you the donors that are already available. Why I'm mentioning this? Because a lot of people are asking for access to the databases, and we just say no. We're not able to give you the access to the database because some of them, I would say most of them, are not updated, especially now that, you know, so many people left Ukraine. A lot of the donors that are visible on the website that seem to be available are not available actually. So what we do, we just, it's our job to get the specifications from you and find the best options, send you the donor profiles that match the specifications and that are available. So we make absolutely sure that these donors are available. Also, some people ask whether they are able to see the donors before signing the contract. We don't do that. What we do, we can send some donor profiles that are ready as an example, but we don't do the donor search before signing the service agreement. First of all, because everyone's characteristics are so specific that it is a huge effort and time investment. And also, the time that the donors are available might be very limited. So imagine the situation: we found your perfect donor, and until we have all the documents ready and all the process, the donor might be gone, might be just taken by someone else. So this is why we don't do donor search before the signing the agreement. But I have to mention that we've never not found a donor, and that's including nationalities or some very specific characteristics that are not common in Ukraine. So we've been successful with that too. Also, I have to mention that anyone we send, all donors we send, they will be completely screened and tested and ready to go, unless we mention that this donor has to be tested or retested or anything else. We're also able to run some additional testing, for example, for some genetic mutations. We've had that requests, for example, to match if two parents have the same genetic mutations. Of course, it doesn't happen often, but we do that if you request, or any other test that is particularly important to you. And there's the second important and popular question in these times, taking into consideration this time, does it mean that my donor will have the quality of her eggs will be worse? Shortly, no. Going into more details, as we know, it's a bit difficult to explain since I'm not a doctor, but the oocytes are being developed during more or less 9 months. So the oocytes that will be stimulated now were born about 9 months ago. So the food and the psychological state of the donor that was 9 months ago, that's what affected the oocytes. And what is being affected now are the oocytes that are just being born and will be mature in about 9 months. So if we stimulate a donor right now, it is not affected by her mental state because of so much stress. So this is the answer.
Hey, what information is provided for the majority of the donors are anonymous in Ukraine? What information is provided in the profiles?
I should have mentioned that even if the donor is anonymous, we still get some general information. We of course get their pictures. Sometimes we get their pictures as younger, when they were kids. And we have general information such as age, blood type, hobbies, hair color, eye color, height, weight, of course. And as I said, hobbies, occupation, and if they have a degree or... Say again?
Education.
Yes, I just forgot the word.
Family health history.
Yes. Some just general things, if they have allergies or these kind of things. We have all the same information about known donors, plus if you have any requests or questions, we could do that too.
Can you speak to the difference between frozen eggs versus fresh eggs? Or would you like?
Yeah. Some people think that frozen eggs are worse because they're frozen already. Or when they find out that there is a lower amount, like there are less frozen eggs than fresh, there might be. Because what we do, the database we work with, they have approximately 12 frozen oocytes. So we've heard some people say, well, that's less than fresh. But here is the thing. The embryologist we work with has his own technology, which is, I guess I cannot describe it. I just know that it's a very good technology, that they select the oocytes of the best quality. So as a final result, since these are the best quality oocytes, they will give about the same amount of 5-day embryos as fresh oocytes, because those of the lower quality will just stop developing. Of course, we have to take into consideration that sperm does 50%. That's 50% of success. But we definitely know that if the frozen oocytes, if they're frozen, it doesn't mean that they are lower quality or they are worse. It's actually might be even easier for the embryologist to work with it. And we actually noticed that even those 12 would result in the same amount of embryo 5-day blastocysts as, let's say, 20 fresh, but of a lower quality.
Great. And we can ask questions if anyone wants. Let me see if I can repin myself. The other question I want to address is surrogates. We've been asked a lot if there are surrogates, there are enough surrogates, if there's going to be a wait for surrogate. And again, the answer is no. We've been able to pair people within about 1 to 2 weeks. We have a lot of good relationships. The surrogates we have had are so happy that the word spreads. And like I said, we take really, really good care of them. And we believe that very, very strongly that taking care of your surrogate so well will be taking care of your child equally well. So that's a very strong part of our mission. So that has not been any problem at all. And now I want to go through some of the changes to our programs. So I went through pretty much everything is the same. There is one thing we're recommending for surrogates that are further east. If possible, we're recommending to families that they, we normally pay from week 26 to the end of the pregnancy for surrogates to have accommodations close to the clinic, and whether that's in Kiev or Lviv or anywhere else. But we are recommending the parents to pay for accommodation for them and their families to be close to the clinic from, depends on how they feel comfortable, either before the embryo transfer or after embryo transfer. We do not want them to have the stress of long traveling. It is still unpredictable. And we would rather have them in a close location and in a less stressful location. But we always allow them to be with their families. If this is not an option because of cost, Oksana will tell you about the situation in Lviv, and right now it's very hard to find apartments. Luckily, I mentioned we did take a lot of apartments in January, but the average cost is $1,000 a month. So it's not small. And for those couples that are bringing many family members, we've had to ask the parents to give a small stipend from that earlier period before, if they bring them before the embryo transfer. After that, we take over everything for the support of the surrogate. So going forward, options. I'm going to share my screen. But before that, actually, Oksana, why don't you tell a little bit about what it's really like on the ground in Lviv?
Well, yeah, as Susan mentioned, I live in Lviv. Lviv is located in the western part of Ukraine. The western city of Lviv has taken in hundreds of thousands of refugees in the start of Russian invasions of Ukraine. Under the looming threat of attacks, life goes on here. It's spring in Lviv, as I mentioned at the beginning, here hundreds of kilometers from the capital of Kiev and from the front line in the Donbass region. It would be easier for us to forget about the war, but we still have this here. Supermarket shelves show no sign of having been raped by the worried customers. Coffees and restaurants are opened. Right now, we learn to live with a new rhythm, with new rules and new reality. Right now in Lviv, there are many diplomats, government workers, and volunteers as well. So, as Susan mentioned, with the unpredictably high demands, apartments prices have increased significantly here, and most hotels and apartments are fully booked for at least a month. But people, volunteers, try to help each other as much as they can. Some people, they try to take people from other cities to their home and like share their life with these people who are now without their own homes. But Lviv still stays a safe place, and we hope this will remain.
Are there still air raid sirens?
Yes, we do have sirens almost every day, even twice per day, but thanks God, no bombings.
And what is the, can you talk a little bit about, in Lviv does not have a private birth hospital and
delivery houses.
Yeah. Thank you.
We have on the state.
They've outfitted beautifully, and the section that we use, and we've negotiated with them. This is even in the past, but maybe you can tell a little bit about the conditions. And we've had several births there, on the very recent, just so that people can get a view, and maybe the last birth, her story. I know we're going to get she's going to write something actually about the hospital because she was so impressed. She was a several-time surrogate, so she's given birth in many.
She has to compare. She has to compare with, Yeah, actually in Lviv we have few delivery houses, but they are not private, but state ownership. But nevertheless, this delivery house, they are very modern, with modern equipment inside, and even you can have the separate room to stay with your surrogate mother for the whole day, so you can be like on private option there. People are incredible there. As maybe some of you know who was in Lviv, that western part of Ukraine, they are like a little slightly different from the central and south part of Ukraine. This is like because I live here and I know this. But that is why people, nurses and doctors, they are very polite, and even the doctor. We had a couple of surrogates who already gave birth here in Lviv, and the surrogates, they were incredibly impressed with the doctors and nurses and care after and during the delivery, because even the head doctor, she was on the delivery with our surrogate, and she was taking her hand all the time during the delivery, and she always kept telling her that everything will be fine, I will help you, just listen to me, and everything will be fine. So that is why our surrogates, they are very, very happy after. And of course, we will have some feedbacks from them, and maybe you will be able to read them on Google, because this is like not something that you can just ask them to say. This is like their own story and their own experience here.
Thanks. All right, I'm going to share my screen and see if this works.
And I'm really very proud of this, that we have such a great feedbacks from them and from the.
We're very proud of our team. Let's see here. All right, so hopefully you can see, oh, sorry about that. You can see the options here. So what we're doing is offering a lot of options during this period of uncertainty. No one knows what's going to happen. I certainly am not going to make any predictions. We hope and pray that this is all coming to an end. However, no one can be certain. And for those people that are restarting, and we want to make sure that they have a lot of backup plans. So our first part of any surrogacy is the surrogate selection and testing. I'm going to talk about Lviv right now. If Kiev becomes a really viable option, then we will look to that. But I want to make absolutely sure that that has not only been a safe option now, or the time we're looking at it, but a safe option continually for a long period of time. Okay, so we're looking mostly at Lviv for our surrogate selection and testing. Why? All the surrogates are not, so it is most comfortable for them to go here. We have to pay a lot for them to travel to be tested. We don't get them tested just anywhere. We get them tested at the best clinics. So we want to make absolutely sure that everything is done right. Putting them on an airplane to travel anywhere else, we would only do if we wanted to. Our second choice would be Albania, but that incurs a lot of additional costs because of the flights, obviously. So we're going to try as much as possible and recommend highly that we continue to do this in Albania. This will not affect you for the most part because this stage is done by us, unless you were to say we want that done somewhere else. Up to date, we've had no requests for this, and I don't see that this would ever be a problem because you aren't offered a surrogate until the testing is completely done and we are sure that the surrogate is tested and appropriate, ready to go. And in some cases, they're mostly because of where we test them in their cycle, they're very ready to go. So you will have to make a decision relatively quickly. So this stage really doesn't affect you because we're doing that all ourselves before we offer you a surrogate. So then the next stage is surrogate preparation, the IVF process itself, the pre-implantation genetic testing, and embryo transplant. Ideally, we are looking at either Lviv, Ukraine, or Albania. Now, why these countries? Lviv and Albania, our clinics in both these facilities have the best embryology and the best labs. They have been constructed by people we trust, people that are internationally known. So we're not talking about even, not to put down, but they're not Ukrainian doctors. These are international doctors, and we're fully confident in both facilities. We have spoken with our embryologists, and they are personally doing our transfers. So this isn't going to be the lab assistant. This is not going to be, someone under him. It's going to be the head embryologist. So if we were to use Albania, the extra cost involved would be his flights to Albania. So that would be the only thing passed on to you, or if there was additional cost in medicine. All right, pregnancy care, which is week 6 to 28. I should go back and say, if we do the IVF in Albania, then that would be, we would keep the surrogate there through 6 weeks, through the identification to the point where the fetal heartbeat is heard. And if the pregnancy was stable, we would move her at that point. If the doctors had any concerns at all, we would leave her there until such point as they were completely confident that moving would not endanger her or the pregnancy. So pregnancy care, which is basically for the entire period after week 28, is when we generally are looking at more of a maternity home or maternity hospital relationship. So we have 3 options here. Lviv, again, and when I say that, it could be, by the time those of you who start, it could well be Kiev as well. Albania, again, because we trust the medical care there so much, or Poland. And the Polish option is one that we're using now frequently, and Kate is there with surrogates. The clinic in Poland has a relationship with our clinic in Lviv. And so that has been a very seamless seamless care for our surrogates. Obviously, it's there's another kind of translation, but translating from Polish into English is kind of as difficult as Ukrainian to English. There is, because they count things a little different. We've had a lot of fun because they always count the weeks of the pregnancy different than in Ukraine. So everything we do outside of Ukraine, we have our doctors there in Ukraine that we've hired as consultants. Every single thing, after every single ultrasound, every single test, every single meeting, we go back to them to confirm, to check, and see if they have any additional questions. And that means even if our surrogate coordinator and Kate are there in the appointment and there's something that they don't understand or they need to do, that we can go back to them at that point to make sure. Now, the choice in these is yours. We can make a recommendation, but you are the ones, it is your child, so we help. We do recommend highly that you're moving not just your surrogate, but if they have a child, or if they and someone who's going to support them. Again, we mentioned not only emotionally, but in terms of helping them with the cleaning and whatnot. In Poland, there's a huge community of Ukrainians, so they can mesh very easily. If they have a child, there's things to do. There's even children's kindergartens and schools and activities. There's hundreds and hundreds of millions probably, Kate, of Ukrainians there. So they are not alone. In Albania, it's much harder. There's a big difference in language and culture. So it is, they lean much heavier on us. And frankly, it can be a little bit more of a strain. So we are encouraging as a first choice Ukraine, and as a second choice Poland, and as a third choice Albania. And the reason these three are here, though, is because Albania does have the medicine that we are confident in. All right, birth and exit documentation going forward. In Lviv right now, we can do the documentation as if there was no war. You should all know that thankfully, the embassies have really streamlined their systems. However, we see this every time we do this during the war, they seem to change what they want. So the majority, the key things they need are the medical birth certificate that's issued as soon as your child is born at the birth hospital, the certificate that shows your biological relationship of one of you, biological father, biological mother, or both, and the refusal from the surrogate mother of the child's custody. The birth certificate, a normal birth certificate, pre-war birth certificate, can then be issued for your child. Most of the embassies don't even need more than a maternity birth certificate. A lot of agencies have lost a lot of documents. So we have everything, and you can rest assured that we'll keep everything in the future. They do, however, unfortunately, we used to be able to work with them directly with the embassies, but now they want to work directly with the couples. So this does put a little bit more onus on us, and we have to do more of a telephone chain where you said, they said this, and we have to give you this. And so, but we want to make that as easy as possible. The other thing is you can do DNA tests in Ukraine or anywhere, but the timing of getting the results back does change. It's been a couple days, today we checked and it's a week. So it is a little different depending on the demand. In Lviv and anywhere in Ukraine, or if you don't know, the best thing is that your names are on the birth certificate and there's no mention of a surrogate or a donor. So this is obviously ideal. This is actually wrong. This is Georgia. I'm not going to write it here because, well, let's see.
Susan, I think you mean Poland Georgia instead of Poland, not Czech Republic.
Yes, yeah. Yep, we have a little problem here. And this would be Czech. Sorry about this. You cannot give birth in Poland. Okay, so here we go, guys. Apologies for the beautiful handwriting. We wanted to be able to give you the information, and you see our kind of marketing material. We're trying to keep up. So that's Ukraine. In Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Moldova, all the countries that surround Ukraine, you would not have parental rights. In fact, the child would be a ward of the state. On the birth certificate, it would be a surrogate mother if she's married her husband, and it would be pretty much a disaster. So that would not be an option. In Albania, the surrogate is the mother and the father is the biological father. What we're doing here is, if you're looking at options, and most people are, just for the uncertainty of the future, we're preparing documents for the future for any of these countries. And most of them have more to do with the documentation for your surrogate, but they also influence the choice of the surrogate, if she's married or not, different situations, so for different countries. So we do need to prepare them in advance. So Albania, really great medical care, fantastic. The negative part is you will have to do an adoption from the mother's side. Czech Republic, same thing, very good medical care. If you give birth there, it's identical to Albania, although the documentation is much more intense than in Albania. In the Czech Republic, you would also, the mother would be the surrogate, the father would be the biological parent on the birth certificate. Lot of documentation, and of course that needs to be prepared way in advance. Now, the Republic of Georgia is exactly the same legally as Ukraine. So your name as intended parents would be on the birth certificate with no mention of a surrogate or a donor if there was a donor. The trick here is that we're not as thrilled with the medicine there, but it's the birth. So we would only look at that, or I would only suggest it if we have a very healthy pregnancy. For something that's super high risk, we wouldn't want to move them that far, or we'd want to move them very early in the pregnancy. But we've even seen that moving a very high risk pregnancy, even by car, can be challenging. So we want to make sure that we don't want to lose your child under every circumstance. So Georgia is an option. Again, we have to prepare the correct documents in advance. So when we're doing our service agreement with you, it's important that we understand just, yes, I'm looking at these options, so please make sure that we have the documentation done. And again, we're suggesting it's easiest to have the documentations for Albania and Georgia rather than the Czech Republic. Now, something to keep in mind. You all saw this week that mysterious bombs were landed in that area of Moldova that's occupied by Russia. I think the suggestion by Russia is that they're Ukrainian. We all know that they're Russian, and that this could be pretext to some kind of an invasion by Russia into Moldova. I don't know, and I'm not predicting the future. However, please remember that part of Georgia, the Republic of Georgia, is also occupied. They're not a member of NATO, and I would hope and pray that there's never any issues there, but it cannot be ruled out as a potential conflict area. Albania is a EU country and part of NATO. So that does give some security. Again, terribly sorry about the maternal lack of, custody. So those are the options going forward. And what I want to make sure you understand is that it doesn't need to be Lviv, 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 Lviv. It can be Lviv, 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 Albania. It can be, Lviv, Poland. This is what a lot of people are doing. Lviv for the embryo transfer, and then Poland for the surrogacy care because they're nervous about keeping their child and surrogate in any part of Ukraine. So that is an option. So this is not something that's set in stone for you. There are options going forward. Now for Poland, we know the exact costs. We are only passing on the cost of the apartment there because they're so outrageously expensive. So similar to the same situation in Kiev, we start paying at week 26. So the cost from the cost of your apartment, or excuse me, her apartment would be paid by the intended parents from the time she's moved to week 26. When she moves back or when she moves to the place of birth depends a lot, entirely on the doctor. But if you want her moved earlier, then we will listen to you. If you want her moved later, we shall protest because we want to do what's very best for your child and the surrogate. So I'm going to go back to our Zoom. And let's see here. And then I will talk briefly about how we start up, although I know a lot of you are current clients. Okay, apologies for the little thing here. Got to find a way to stop screen share. There we go. Okay. So how do we start? With couples that are interested in starting right away, the first step is to contact us. And I apologize hugely. Within the last month, the period of February to beginning of April, we canceled a lot of initial calls. Our first priority was making sure that our surrogates, their children, and our intended parents were kept safe and informed and in communication. So starting new clients was a second priority because we do not want to start anyone that cannot be taken care of to the service we believe you need. So starting process, please call us and we will go through your situation personally. There's always, every situation is individual. We want to talk about the programs that would speak with you about the programs that you might be most interested in. You review our service agreement, go through that. We like very, very much to have your sperm test results before moving forward. If you have embryos in existence that you wish to use and ship, we like all the information on those. Why? We can send that to the embryologists and get an opinion. So if they come back and say, this is the best sperm ever, then you know more about which process or which program you might want to take. If they come back and say, these embryos are fantastic, then you, again, maybe you don't need a unlimited transfer program. Maybe you only need one and you want to pay by the second transfer if you need it. So that is a thing. Testing can sometimes be hard where you are. We'll try to find you solutions and try to help as much as possible. After signing, we help you prepare the documentation necessary, legal and medical. And if you're shipping, which is happening now, we will help you prepare all the shipping documentation. Sometimes we can work directly with the facility, your lab, to make that easy. And we set up a WhatsApp group so that you can trace your biological material as it moves. We're talking about serious international specialized biological couriers, and that all they do is ship biological materials so that they don't go through any screening like x-rays or anything like that. And once you decide, once we go ahead, once we start, in addition to starting all the documentation on your side, starting all the documents if you need to ship. If you're looking for a donor, then we start sending you potential donors right away. So that is how we work, and we try to answer all your questions. There's always questions before, during, and after the process. I don't know if you have any now or if I've missed anything, but you're happy to put them in chat, or you're happy to write us afterwards. My email is susan@delivering-dreams.com. And you can shoot me a note, or our phone number. I'll put in, well, the best is the email. Oh, there we go. Thank you. The PGD testing we send out. So the PGD testing is done in Germany. So we don't actually do the PGD testing in Ukraine. The question was, what clinic do we do testing or embryo transfer, excuse me. So we have 3 clinics we work with in Lviv. Right now, it's more about doctor than clinic. We have spoken with some of the best doctors that have the best records of transfers. One of the things that's happened during the war, I'm really glad you asked this question, is that the doctors have moved around because a lot of the clinics have shut down, especially in Kiev. So we've been able to sort of pick the best and ask them to do the transfers for us. So like I discussed earlier, that the head embryologists we love are going to be traveling to do our particular transfers. We've spoken with the doctors that we believe, and our surrogates and surrogate coordinators believe are the very best for embryo transfers, to make sure that we have really truly the very best chance of success with our first transfers. Do you think there's any chance of getting embryos out of Kharkiv in the moment? Yeah, you just need to speak with us. It depends on where they are, what facility. We've got to make sure if they're safe there, then there's always a chance that we can move it. If we can get someone out of Sumy and Oksana, we got someone out of Chernitsk recently. So there was complete, the second place was completely mined. So it took us it took us time to make sure we could do it, but we did it. It just takes time. So if you speak to us about it, yes, we can do it. We have to do it at the right time. We can't just say, yes, we're doing it tomorrow. We have to plan it. We have to make sure that everything's set, and that when we do it, it's a safe time to do it. I don't think I don't think Ukraine's going to be allowed to join the European Union. I wish it would, but I think any country that's involved in an active war or has occupation of any kind will not be allowed to join the EU, sadly. And that precludes Moldova and Georgia. Being in the EU has nothing to do with banning surrogacy or forbidding surrogacy. Each country has their own rules. And Poland has it mostly for religious purposes, I would say. Some other countries have it for other reasons. It has nothing to do with being in the EU, being in NATO. In England, for example, oh no, now they did Brexit and left the EU. But when they were in the EU, surrogacy is legal there. The problem is that it's only altruistic, so it's very hard to find a surrogate, and it's even harder because you cannot advertise. So you have to do word of mouth somehow to find a surrogate. So that's extremely difficult. So that's why a lot of families, couples from the UK look at Ukraine, and of course also the affordability vis-a-vis other countries. So are there any other questions specifically we can answer for you? In terms of pricing, please refer to our sheets. Like I said, we've been able to keep everything the same except for the housing before 26 weeks. The programs, when you move to a different country, there are additional costs for sections done in Albania or Georgia or the Czech Republic, but we have to check with the exit costs. They may be equivalent with Ukraine. So how did it go legally with the surrogates that were moved to Poland? Were their babies born there, and how this was handled? The children were not born there. We moved, like I said, all our surrogates were moved to Poland, and we did it on a case-by-case scenario, speaking with the parents and the surrogates. And the surrogates actually felt extremely strongly about going back to Ukraine for the birth. They were very concerned, and this is, keep in mind that no one thought there was a war, so these surrogates were not prepared to think about these potential options. Surrogates that are starting now were saying, look, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. And in these situations, are you willing to go to Albania? Are you willing to go to Georgia? Are you willing to go to Poland? So they have much more of they have an idea, and thankfully you have much more of an idea of options that, you know, are available to you. At that point, these women had not been aware of those options. Plus, we had some problems with documentation because, like I said, the documentation for these countries is different. And some of the surrogates were not in a position to do this because they either did not have the right documentation to give birth in one of these countries, or because they were married, they were not, it would not have given custody to you as intended parents. So we moved them back to Lviv, and they gave birth there in this beautiful hospital. Oksana said some parents came there. We actually have intended parents there now. Some parents went to the border, and we brought the child to them. So there's a number of different ways that was done. It depended on the parents, and we worked with them, and they worked with the embassies in Warsaw to facilitate that as much as possible. Again, we have the team in Poland led by Kate, so that we have the Polish speaking ability, and then we have the team in Lviv right now so that we can facilitate on that side. Is there anything else I can answer or ask? Any other questions or whatnot? So thank you all for your time. I hope I've been able to answer a lot of questions. There's always more, and this is a fluid situation and no one can predict. So we all hope for peace, and yet, unfortunately, plan so that your surrogacy journeys will be safe and successful. So thank you all. And if you want to contact us, you can contact me directly at susan@delivering-dreams.com. Oksana and Kate, same thing, at delivering-dreams.com. And you can see our website at delivering-dreams.com. So have a great day or night, and we'll look forward to speaking with you. Take care.